My name is Mark. I'm 52 years old. I used to believe that after 50, nothing in life could truly shock you anymore. You've seen betrayal, disappointment, broken promises. You think you're prepared for anything. I was wrong, because one evening, without screaming, without crying, without any warning, my wife poured scalding hot coffee on me. Not during an argument, not in a moment of madness, but calmly, deliberately. And what happened after that moment is what destroyed my family forever. If you're listening to this story, I want you to understand something from the start. This isn't just about coffee. It's not even just about violence. It's about a son who could do no wrong, a wife who chose sides long before that day, and a marriage that had already died, even though I was the last one to realize it. I didn't scream. I didn't hit her. I didn't call the police. I simply walked away, and that decision changed everything. I had been married to Linda for 23 years. When we met, she was a single mother. Her son, Ethan, was 8 years old back then. His biological father had disappeared early in his life, and Linda carried that wound like a badge of honor and a shield. From the beginning, I knew marrying Linda meant accepting Ethan as my own. And I did. Or at least, I tried harder than anyone ever gave me credit for. I paid for his school. I coached his soccer team. I stayed up late helping him with homework. I was there for every broken arm, every suspension, every excuse. But Ethan never called me Dad. And as the years went by, I realized something unsettling. No matter what Ethan did, Linda always defended him. When he lied, it was misunderstanding. When he failed, the teachers were unfair. When he got into trouble, someone else provoked him. And when I tried to set boundaries, I was too strict. Not his real father. Overreacting. I told myself it would get better when he grew up. It didn't. By the time Ethan turned 27, he was still living with us. No steady job. No rent. No responsibilities. But plenty of opinions. Plenty of anger. He treated the house like a hotel and me like a stranger who had overstayed his welcome. And Linda, she enabled every second of it. That night, the night of the coffee, started like any other quiet evening. I came home tired. My back hurt. My hands were still cold from the drive. Linda was in the kitchen. Ethan was on the couch, scrolling on his phone. I asked one simple question. Ethan, have you found a job yet? The room went silent. And in that silence, something snapped. I didn't know then that this question would be the last one I ever asked in that house. I didn't know that within minutes, I would be burned, humiliated, and erased from my own family. And I definitely didn't know that walking away, quietly, would eventually become the most painful and powerful decision of my life. The silence after my question felt heavier than any argument we'd ever had. Ethan didn't look up from his phone at first. His thumb kept scrolling, slow and lazy, like I hadn't spoken at all. Linda turned toward me immediately. Her face tightened, not with concern, but with irritation. Mark, she said, in that warning tone I'd learned to recognize over the years, don't start tonight. I sighed. I hadn't raised my voice. I hadn't insulted anyone. It was a simple question, one I'd asked dozens of times before. I'm not starting anything, I said. I am asking. He's 27. That's when Ethan finally looked at me. His eyes were cold, calculating. The look of someone who knew, deep down, that no matter what he said next, he was protected. Why are you always on my back? He snapped. You think jobs grow on trees? I think adults take responsibility, I replied. Linda stepped between us. Physically. Enough, she said. He's under a lot of pressure. Pressure. That word had become her universal excuse. Pressure from society. Pressure from expectations. Pressure from people like me. Never pressure to contribute. Never pressure to grow up. I work 12 hours a day, I said quietly. I pay the bills. I don't think asking him to look for a job is unreasonable. Ethan laughed. Actually laughed. You don't even want me here, he said. You never did. That one hurt more than I expected. Because it wasn't true. But Linda didn't defend me. She didn't say, that's not fair. She didn't say, he's been here for you. Instead, she turned to me and said something that still echoes in my head. You don't understand him. You're not his father. There it was. The line she only used when she wanted to end the discussion and remind me of my place. I felt something shift inside my chest. A quiet, cracking sound. I may not be his biological father, I said slowly, but I've been the only father figure in his life for nearly 20 years. Ethan stood up. Now he was towering over me, fists clenched, chest puffed out. Oh, please, he scoffed. You're just a guy my mom married. Linda didn't tell him to stop. She watched, and that's when I realized, truly realized, that this argument wasn't about a job. It was about power, about who mattered in this house. And it wasn't me. I walked toward the kitchen sink, needing a moment to cool down. My hands were shaking slightly, and I didn't want to say something I couldn't take back. Linda followed me. You always push him, she said. Why can't you just leave him alone? Because leaving him alone is why he's like this, I replied. Her eyes hardened. You don't get to talk about my son like that. I turned to face her. I'm not attacking him. I'm asking for basic respect. That's when she picked up the mug. I noticed it because of the steam. Freshly brewed. Dark coffee. Still bubbling slightly at the surface. She held it tightly, knuckles white. For a split second, I thought she was just going to slam it on the counter. I was wrong. She took one step closer. And before my brain could fully register what was happening, she threw it at me. The pain was instant. White hot. Blinding. I felt it soak through my shirt, burning my skin, my chest, my shoulder. My breath left my lungs in a sharp gasp, but no sound came out. The mug clattered to the floor and shattered. Ethan didn't move. Linda didn't scream. She just stood there, breathing hard, eyes locked onto mine. And then she said something I will never forget. If you didn't provoke him, she said coldly, this wouldn't have happened. That was the moment. Not when the coffee hit my skin, but when I realized she wasn't sorry. I looked at Ethan. He smirked, not shocked, not scared, satisfied. And suddenly, everything made sense. I didn't scream. That's the part people find hardest to believe when I tell this story. Scalding coffee soaked into my skin, my chest burning like it was on fire. And still I didn't yell. I didn't curse. I didn't shove her away. I just stood there. My shirt clung to me, heavy and wet. The smell of coffee mixed with something sharp and sickening, burned skin. Linda was still holding the empty mug handle in her hand. Her fingers were shaking now, but not with regret, with anger. Look what you made me do, she said. I remember thinking how strange that sentence was. You made me do this. I had heard it before, not with violence, but with words, with silence, with blame. I slowly peeled my shirt away from my chest. The fabric stuck in places, and I winced despite myself. Ethan finally spoke. You gonna call the cops now? He asked mockingly. Play the victim? Linda turned to him immediately. Stop, she said softly. Not firmly, not angrily, just enough to sound like a good mother. Then she looked back at me. Don't make this worse than it already is, she said. You know how sensitive he is. Sensitive. My hands were trembling now. Not from pain, from the effort it took to stay calm. I'm leaving, I said. Linda blinked. What? I'm leaving, I repeated. Tonight. Ethan laughed again. Good, he said. Finally. That laugh echoed in my head as I walked past him. I grabbed my jacket from the hallway. My keys. My wallet. Linda followed me, her voice rising now. You're being dramatic, she said. You can't just walk out over this. I turned to face her one last time. Over this? I asked quietly, gesturing to my burned chest. No, I'm walking out over everything. She opened her mouth to respond, but I was already opening the door. The cold night air hit my skin, sharp and painful against the burns. I stepped outside, and for the first time in decades, I felt free. I slept in my car that night. I parked near a grocery store, leaned the seat back, and stared at the ceiling. Every movement sent a jolt of pain through my chest. But the physical pain wasn't the worst part. It was the silence. No apologies. No calls. No messages. At 3:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Linda. You embarrassed Ethan. You need to apologize. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I turned the phone off. The next morning, I went to urgent care. Second-degree burns. The nurse asked me how it happened. I hesitated. An accident at home, I said. She looked at me for a moment. The way people do when they don't fully believe you, but don't push. As she wrapped my chest, I caught my reflection in the mirror. Red, blistered, exhausted, and older. Much older. By the third day, Linda still hadn't asked how I was, but she had posted on Facebook. Some people don't know how to support a struggling young man. Friends commented with hearts, with support, with words like "Stay strong, mama." I realized then that the story had already been rewritten. In her version, I wasn't burned. I was the villain. And that's when I made a decision, one that would quietly change the balance of power forever. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to explain myself. I was going to walk away and let them live with the consequences. I didn't go back home. Not that day. Not the next. Instead, I checked into a small motel on the edge of town, the kind of place people don't ask questions at. I paid in cash and asked for a room on the ground floor, so I wouldn't have to climb stairs with my burns. The TV stayed off. I didn't want noise. I needed to think. For the first time in years, I had space to remember things I had ignored. Like the fact that the house we lived in, the one Linda always called our home, was legally mine. Inherited from my parents. Paid off long before I met her. Linda had never worked full-time. Ethan had never worked at all. And suddenly, I realized how much of their stability rested quietly on me. I didn't feel angry. I felt clear. On the fourth day, I went back to the house, not to confront anyone, just to collect documents. I parked down the street so they wouldn't see my car. The burns were still visible, wrapped beneath a loose shirt. Every step hurt, but I kept moving. The house was empty. Ethan's car was gone. Linda's too. I unlocked the door with my key. 23 years of life sat around me. Photos, furniture, memories that no longer felt like mine. I went straight to my office. The filing cabinet opened with a familiar squeak. Inside, the deed to the house. Bank statements, insurance documents, retirement accounts, all in my name. Linda had always trusted me with the boring stuff. I gathered everything into a folder. Then I did one more thing, something small, something she wouldn't notice right away. I canceled the shared credit card. No speech, no warning, just a quiet click on my phone. That evening, I got my first call. I let it ring, then another, then a text. Why is the card declined? I stared at the message and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no guilt, just inevitability. The next day, I met with a lawyer. He was calm, methodical. He asked me to describe the incident. I rolled up my shirt. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, he nodded once. "You did the right thing by leaving," he said, "and by not reacting." He explained my options. Separation, divorce, protective orders, if I wanted them. But what stayed with me was something else he said. Silence, he told me, makes people reveal themselves. Linda began to unravel. Her messages grew longer, sharper. "You're abandoning your family. Ethan is struggling because of you. Real men don't run away." I didn't reply. Instead, I changed my direct deposit. I removed my name from joint utilities. I froze access to savings accounts I had funded alone. Each action was legal, documented, quiet. 2 weeks after the incident, Ethan finally texted me. "You think you're smart? My mom is crying every night." I read it twice, then deleted it, because for the first time, his words had no power over me. And then, unexpectedly, someone else reached out. Someone who wasn't on Linda's side. Someone who had seen everything from the beginning. And what they told me made me realize this story was far from over. The call came late at night. I almost didn't answer. The number wasn't saved, but something about it felt deliberate. Like whoever was calling had thought about it for a long time before pressing dial. "Mark," a woman's voice asked. "Yes, this is Rachel, Linda's sister." I hadn't spoken to Rachel in years. She lived 2 states away and had always been the difficult one in the family, the one who didn't pretend everything was fine. "I'm sorry to call so late," she said, "but I heard what happened." I didn't respond right away. "I saw the photos," she continued. "Your burns. Linda sent them to the family chat, but not the whole story." That made my stomach turn. "She said you lost control," Rachel said. "That you scared Ethan." I closed my eyes. "And you didn't believe her," I said. Rachel exhaled slowly. "No," she said, "because this isn't the first time." That sentence changed everything. We talked for over an hour. Rachel told me things I had never known, or maybe things I had chosen not to see. Ethan had been kicked out of 2 previous living situations before moving back in with us years ago. Violence, threats, explosive anger. Linda had always cleaned it up, smoothed it over, paid damages. He's been escalating, Rachel said quietly, and she refuses to see it. Then Rachel said something that made my hands go cold. Mark, the coffee wasn't spontaneous. I sat up in bed. What do you mean? She's done something similar before, Rachel said. Not with coffee. With a plate. With a neighbor. Years ago. My mind replayed the moment in the kitchen. The steady grip on the mug, the lack of shock afterward. The calm. This wasn't a snap. It was permission. The next day, my lawyer called. Your wife filed for spousal support, he said. And she's claiming emotional distress caused by abandonment. I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was absurd. She wants to play this publicly, I said. Yes, he replied. And she's counting on you staying silent. I thanked him and hung up. For the first time since I left, I felt something shift. Not anger. Resolve. Later that afternoon, I received an email from Ethan's former employer. They had found my contact through old emergency paperwork. They wanted to know if I could help. Help with what? A police report. Ethan had been involved in an altercation. Again. And this time, Linda couldn't make it disappear. I realized then that walking away wasn't enough. Silence had revealed them. Now, truth would finish it. I went to the police station the next morning. Not to file a complaint. Not yet. I just wanted information. The officer at the front desk looked at my bandages, then at my face. He didn't ask many questions. There's already a file, he said, typing into his computer. My stomach tightened. For Ethan. He nodded. 2 prior incidents. 1 domestic disturbance. 1 assault charge that had been dropped after the victim refused to testify. Both times, Linda had intervened. She's listed as an emergency contact, the officer added. And as a character reference. Of course she was. That afternoon, Linda finally showed up at the motel. She stood outside my door for a long time before knocking. When I opened it, she froze. The burns were worse than she remembered. Darker. Angrier. Oh my God, she whispered. I didn't know it was that bad. I studied her face carefully. There was shock, but still no guilt. You shouldn't have left, she said. Ethan is falling apart. I laughed quietly. He was falling apart long before I left. She stepped closer. Please, she said. Just come home. We can talk. We can fix this. That word again. Fix. As if the problem was temporary. As if trust could be reheated like leftover coffee. I won't live in a house where violence is justified, I said calmly. Her expression hardened instantly. So you're really doing this, she snapped. You're choosing strangers over your family. No. I'm choosing myself. 2 days later, I received notice. Linda had filed a restraining order request against me, claiming emotional abuse, intimidation. The irony was almost impressive. My lawyer wasn't surprised. She's escalating because she's losing control, he said, and because Ethan is now being questioned. I signed the paperwork to formally document the coffee incident. Photos, medical records, statements. Once it was on file, things moved fast. Ethan was arrested 3 days later. Not for what he did to me, for what he did after I left. An altercation turned violent. A witness stayed. A report stuck. Linda called me screaming. You ruined him, she yelled. This is your fault. I held the phone away from my ear. When she stopped, I spoke quietly. No, I said. This is the result of years of protecting him from consequences. She hung up. That was the last time we spoke directly. The court date was set. Divorce proceedings moved forward. And for the first time in decades, the narrative wasn't hers. It was documented. It was factual. And it was irreversible. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Not just the temperature, the atmosphere. Linda sat across from me, perfectly composed. Hair neat. Clothes chosen carefully. She looked like a woman wronged, not a woman who had thrown boiling coffee at her husband. Ethan wasn't there. My lawyer leaned in and whispered, he's in county custody. I didn't react. I had learned that reactions only fed their narrative. Linda spoke first. Her lawyer painted a picture of a fragile mother, trapped in a marriage with a cold, emotionally distant man who abandoned the family during a crisis. I listened quietly. Every word felt like it belonged to a different life. Then it was my turn. I rolled on my shirt. Gasps rippled through the room. The judge leaned forward. Medical records followed. Photos, the urgent care report, the timeline. Then my lawyer did something unexpected. He called Rachel to the stand. Linda's sister didn't look at her once. She spoke clearly, calmly. She described years of enabling, cover-ups, escalating violence. Then she said the sentence that shattered the room. Linda didn't lose control, Rachel said. She chose it. Linda's composure cracked. She stood up, shouting that Rachel had always hated her, that she was lying. The judge silenced her. Then the prosecution in Ethan's case submitted additional evidence. A statement from a neighbor, someone I didn't even know. They had witnessed Ethan threatening me weeks before the incident. No one had ever reported it. Until now. By the end of the day, everything had shifted. The restraining order request against me was denied. My documentation was accepted. The judge granted me exclusive rights to the house pending final divorce. Linda's face went pale. For the first time, she understood something important. She was no longer in control of the story. That night, I sat alone in my motel room. No victory, no celebración, just exhaustion and a strange sense of mourning. Not for the marriage, but for the man I used to be, the one who believed love meant endurance. After the courtroom, life didn't immediately feel lighter. I returned to the house, empty, quiet, my burns slowly healing, both physically and emotionally. Linda had moved in temporarily with her sister. Ethan remained in custody pending a plea deal. The house was mine now, legally and fully. But it felt strange. Too many memories. Too much silence. I began small. Things no one would notice immediately. I changed the locks. I consolidated the accounts. I arranged the utilities under my name only. Every action was silent. Every move deliberate. A quiet revenge. I didn't need to shout. I didn't need confrontation. Every time Linda or Ethan tried to manipulate me from afar, I was already ahead. Everything was documented, everything legal. I discovered power in silence. Power in control. Power in walking away and letting the consequences reach them naturally. Weeks passed. Ethan's attitude shifted once he realized the outside world demanded accountability, something he had never learned at home. Linda tried to intervene, but the courts were no longer her playground. She could no longer shield him. I didn't rub it in. I just let it unfold. And slowly, both of them began to understand something crucial. Their world had never been mine, but I had built it. I had protected it, and I could withdraw from it. Then came the last twist. One evening, a neighbor knocked at my door. A woman I'd barely known. "Mark," she said, "I don't know how you did it, but thank you. You saved Ethan from himself." I paused. "You mean by leaving?" "Yes," she said. "Sometimes walking away is stronger than any fight." Her words hit harder than any courtroom victory. That night, I sat on the porch sipping coffee. Black. Hot, but safe this time. For the first time in years, I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel wronged. I didn't feel trapped. I felt free. And that's when I realized revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's letting the world reveal the truth while you step back and heal. Sometimes walking away is the only justice you need.